Hello and welcome. It's Cara. It has been a while since I have done an actual crafting video. I'm very excited. So this video, I'm going to show you how to make a W journal. Let me show you really quick. This is what we're going to begin and make today. It's kind of hard to show. I feel like it's backwards, but it's a W journal where I have my February planner on one part, and then I'm using the coordinating journal kit for my junk journal, and then in this portion is where I'm going to keep ephemera that I'm going to use throughout the month. And so this is what we're going to make. I know for Christmas I made one of these journals. I got the idea from Edith Ray, Scrapbooking with Me, and I didn't really show you how to make it. So that's what we're going to begin to do. I haven't decorated the cover, as you see, and I haven't made any ephemera or decorated it. We just are going to assemble it. And it's going to be a voiceover. I needed a little time to reacclimate to my craft space and figure out where everything was. So I turned on Netflix and I just enjoyed crafting. I just enjoyed it. It was really nice. So stick with me and let's start our February. Doesn't have to be February, but our W journal. Let's go. All right, to begin, you're going to need 2 of these mailing envelopes, manila mailing envelopes. I got these from Dollar Tree. They come 6 to a pack, which is perfect. And I am just going to glue the 2 flaps together. That little square piece, you could take that off if you wanted. I didn't bother. It'll be fine. I do take off the metal parts though, because I'm going to add some fabric, as you saw, to my cover. So I do remove those, but I didn't really worry about that little square piece. If it bothers you, go ahead and take it off. So this is going to create a pocket, and it's also going to be where it creates the middle of the W. So if you were looking at a W, it would be, yeah, like, so it will make the center of the W. I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to just quickly, these are pretty easy just to pry off. I'm going to take the metal parts off, and I'm sure there's something crafty you could do with them. I ended up throwing mine away. And then you want to fold the left hand side towards the middle. And this is going to make the front cover and the first part where we're going to, add our first journal or signature, depending on how you want to do it. And then you want to fold the the right hand side over to the left, and then that will make the other part for the second signature. If you wanted to, you could have 3 signatures in this W, right? Each fold could be a signature. I just think it's fun to have the back portion for a place to store ephemera. And I mean, it could be receipts, it could be pictures, it could be all sorts of things that you want to keep in this journal. So here we're going to, again, you don't have to use fabric if you are a beginner. You can tell I'm not cutting my fabric quite right, but if you're a beginner, maybe just a collage, kind of make a masterboard out of the cover, and that would look really cool. The fabric that I'm using, I had in my stash. It's a Tim Holtz fabric from a few years ago. I think it's still available. I'm not really sure. I thought the burgundy kind of purpley color went really well with the February planner as well as the journaling kit. So here I'm just kind of eyeballing how I measure. Now, if you're a quilter, if you're a math person, you probably cringe when you see me measuring my fabric and cutting it. I'm sure, I know there's ways to do it to get precise measurements and straight lines, but I just did it this way. This is how I did it. So I cut a piece bigger than the envelope so that I can fold it over. And I'm going to go over the edge so that the middle portion, you'll see in a second, but the middle portion has a place where I can put like a, I end up putting Tim Holtz paper to kind of cover my not so straight edges. Usually I use Fabri-Tac for the part I'm going to do next. But I am out of my Fabri-Tac, so I'm using some Dina Wakley, what is it? Ultra thick medium glue and a brush. And I actually really liked this. I still, no matter what I do, I'm going to get glue or ink on my hands, but it wasn't as much as if when I use Fabri-Tac, because when I use Fabri-Tac, I use my finger as my brush. So this actually was nice and not as messy. Now, a couple spots you'll see here, I didn't thin out the glue as much and it kind of goes through the fabric. A lot of times this would bother me. However, with this really grungy Tim Holtz fabric, I don't think it matters. I think it's going to be okay. And if it was a fabric that it would bother me, I would figure out a way to decorate the cover so I would hide that spot. So there's always a way, if there's a problem that comes up, that you can fix it with junk journaling. That's just one of the beauties of junk journaling. So then you'll see how I have the fabric and it overhangs my envelope. Here, I'm going to fold it over and make my corners for, each of the corners and fold them in. So you'll see right here, I kind of pinch and keep the glue so then I can cut off the corners. And see what I'm saying, how I don't have my straight edges. So after I get all my fabric on, the next step will be to add some cardstock to that center bit so that it hides the imperfections of the jagged fabric. All right, and then I'm going to continue this on the other side of my journal. Here, sorry, I jumped ahead, but here I'm gluing the back part and see how it folds all the way over. Again, that back part of the W is going to be hidden with some not construction paper, cardstock. And so I didn't necessarily need it to go the whole way. I wanted to save as much of my Tim Holtz fabric as I can for other projects or even in this project. And so then I continue and I also apply the fabric to the back cover. All right, so now that I have my fabric on the front cover, I am going to cut down one of the Tim Holtz backdrops. And I have multiple packs of the same, I think he calls them volumes, maybe not. But anyway, I have multiple packs of the same set, if that makes any sense. So anyway, I have two of these map pages. So one's going to go on the left and one's going to go on the right. And I'm just cutting it down to glue into the cover. So here I realize, oh, I really don't want the envelope showing at the top on that right hand side. So I'm going to trim some more fabric down, just small little bits, and glue it on the top so that it looks consistent with the fabric all the way around. Again, I was wanting to save fabric. I could have covered the whole thing. I just didn't really want to use all the fabric for that. So here I'm just cutting a couple smaller bits, and then I'm going to add that to the top. And I think, now I'm looking at it, I think it looks just fine. You can't really tell the way that it's constructed that there's much of a gap. I mean, you can if you really look at it, but I think it turns out okay. All right, now I'm about to glue on the cardstock. Another thing I could have done is add fabric in the middle where the signature will go. I actually end up taking some washi tape later and putting a strip down the center, and I think it looks just fine because your signature will cover that up. But if again it bothers you, that's an idea. As you'll see once I glue this on, you'll see part of the envelope behind, so that's an option. Or, I mean, you could put another piece of cardstock back there, etc. I do think if it was cardstock there, it would kind of bulk it up and it wouldn't be as flexible. So for me, my solution was just a little bit of washi tape, and I think it looks just fine. And so see how the paper just makes the edges look nice and neat. No one is to know. No one's the wiser that I can't measure. So I'm going to go ahead and glue on this other one, and then we're going to work on the flap of the envelope. Okay, so you'll see me ripping off the fabric from before. I realized, you know what? I need a piece that extends further past the side, again, so that it's hidden behind the other cardstock that you'll see here in a second. So I ripped that piece off, and I'm adding a piece of fabric that is longer, and I am going to also add some fabric to the other side. Now, if you want to do sewing around this project, I would recommend sewing before you really put it together. So before gluing the two flaps together, take it to your sewing machine and zip around the edges, and keep in mind where you want pockets or no pockets, because you don't want to sew your pockets closed. In my Christmas journal, I did the sewing after I had it put together, and it was manageable, but it was kind of a pain. So if you want to do the sewing, go ahead and do it before. But really kind of keep in mind where you want your pocket. So if you want a pocket in that front flap, you got to be careful of where you sew. For this one, I decided not to do sewing. However, not having sewing on that flap might bother me. So I might do some sewing or something on the flap, but we'll see. So here again, I'm adding more fabric to the top bit to kind of disguise the fact that I didn't have any fabric there. And then we're going to do the same thing and add more cardstock to this back section. All right, so apparently I didn't record gluing that other cardstock on. I will show you that in just a second. Here I am showing you a sneak peek of the Friday freebie for January 31st, tomorrow. I made a craft room reset, and I'm going to do this for each month, and it's going to coordinate with the planner. In future months, I might change the layout of it so that it fits in the planner better, if that makes sense, since one page is on one side and one's on the other. But for now, I am just going to add it to the center of my February planner. It will stick out and remind me to do my craft reset. And then once a month, I will videotape my craft reset. And if you want to join me and reset your craft room space as well, that would be awesome. There's two versions. There's one without the flowers in a vertical format, and then there's this one that coordinates with the February planner in the horizontal layout. Yeah, so check it out. It will be, it won't be live until Friday, but I will link my coffee page, and that's where you can grab it if you are interested. Okay, so now I am going to sew in my signatures, and this blue, what's it called? Binding tool, I'm not sure what you call it, is possibly, fingers crossed, going to be a new product I have in my Etsy shop very soon. My husband and son have a 3D printer, and they are able to 3D print these, which is very exciting. However, the version of this I want to have in my shop needs a couple tweaks, and so it kind of depends on when the husband is available to add the customization to this very cool tool. It makes lining up the punches so easy. It's super cool. So I will, of course, let you know when that's available. Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. All right, so now I am going to sew in my signatures. And I don't think I do it here, but the second signature, I took that big paper clip and I kind of collapsed the part that I wasn't using, because it is a W and it kind of gets in the way a little bit. So I would recommend folding up the part of the journal that you aren't working with, because you'll see it gets a little cumbersome. But if you're a new junk journaler, I think this is a great journal to start with. Maybe even just doing one envelope and making that as your first journal, that might actually be better. But sewing in one signature at a time, I think, is a great way to start, instead of trying to separate and have equal space between multiple signatures, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think it's a fun newbie kind of journal. And if you are new to sewing in signatures, I always start in the center, and I start from the inside of my journal, and I will go, this time I'm going down. Sometimes I go up, sometimes I go down, but I'll go down to the next hole. Make sure your thread doesn't get pulled out. Mine almost did right there. I was like, oh, oopsies. And then you go through the bottom, and then you go to the very last hole. So this is a 5-hole pamphlet stitch. And then you go to then you're on the back, and you go back from the back to the center. And sometimes you want to make sure, like my thread, you don't want it to get stuck into the other fibers of the other thread. So that's what I was kind of looking for there. And then from the inside, you go to the back. And then I skip past that center one so that my stitches line up in the center. I'm not sure if that made sense. I have other videos where I slow the process down and really kind of go into detail with how to sew it, how to stitch in your signature. And then I get back to the center. I put one thread on one side and one on the other. I tie my knot. Make sure all my threads are nice and tight, and then I tie my knot and I include that thread that has gone through the center. So I kind of tie my knot over it. I do a double knot. And I personally like to keep my strings. Sometimes I'll tie a bow with my strings, and sometimes I will add dangles. And here is where we're at now. And the next stage we'll decorate and add some ephemera. I want to do some stenciling, that kind of thing. So I hope you join me for the next one, but let's take a look. This is the junk journal that coordinates with the planner. I think it's called Amethyst something. And then of course the February 2025 planner. Thanks for joining me. If you are here from the collaboration and you thought you would check out one of Cara's videos, I really appreciate that. And if you're back saying, whew, finally we're back to crafting, I agree. I am so excited. Can't wait to get back to the crafting, making videos stuff, and I can't wait for more videos. I hope you have a wonderfully crafty day, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.